I want to introduce our speakers quickly, there are 4, and then we'll have kind of questions at the end, and we'll make sure to have plenty of time at the end, so be writing down your questions. So Siobhan Hagan is here. She's the founder and president and CEO of MARMIA, which is the Mid-Atlantic Regional Moving Image Archive. I've been practicing that one. She also works for the DC Public Library. Nathan Avant is here, who is a digital archivist and an alum of the University of Maryland with an MLIS degree. And we have from the University Archives here, Jason Speck, who is the head of collection management for special collections, and Ann Turcos, who is the University Archivist Emerita here at the university. So we're first going to start with Siobhan, who's going to get us started, and welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, got some quality gifts here.
All right, let's see what this is fun.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, awesome. My name is Siobhan, as Megan said, and I am here today with my colleague Nathan, over there, to hopefully inspire and empower you to mobilize community media preservation in our wonderful, great state of Maryland. So, in 2016, I founded the Mid-Atlantic Regional Moving Image Archive, what I lovingly call MARMIA, and I specifically called it that so that our newsletter could be the Chronicles of MARMIA. So I worked backwards from there. And our mission, we're a nonprofit organization based in Baltimore City. Our mission is to preserve and provide access to the movies and recorded sounds that document the cultural heritage of the Mid-Atlantic region. I started this organization 2 years ago because I saw a great need for this in my home state of Maryland. My dad played football here at UMG. Both my parents went here, so go Terps. Also the surrounding states, once I really started looking into it, the surrounding states around Maryland also need a lot of help too. So we made it the Mid-Atlantic. We have such a rich cultural legacy and heritage and such diverse communities, but we also have very, very limited expertise in moving image archiving and media preservation, especially for our smaller and more marginalized communities. Just a little preview. So MARMIA, as I mentioned, is based out of Baltimore City Archives. Thanks to very generous partnership with the Maryland State Archives and the City Archives. We store our collections in their warehouse, and we also have 2 workstations there that you can see here. It's a little dark, but you know. On the left is our film inspection and repair bench, and all the other things I can manage to fit there. And then on the right, we have our video cassette digitization workstation, also known as Buffy the Video Slayer. So, just really, can you just dim all the way? Yeah. Because, like, you really need to see this. That's what we're all here for, these moving images. In 2017, there we go. In 2017, we received the WJZ TV collection, which is approximately, give or take, 1 or 2, 25,000 items of moving images and recorded sounds that document Baltimore, Maryland, the surrounding region, and also the nation and world, honestly. So we recently received a small grant to digitize videos from this collection of Baltimore historic sites, and that grant was from Preservation Maryland, so thanks, guys. Here are some of those highlights from that project, and please keep an eye out as we are partnering with Baltimore Heritage to put edited videos for this project on their website and app this fall. We also regularly screen our footage in historic places as well, so there's another tie into historic preservation. We've worked very frequently with the Old Greenbelt Theater, which is only a mere minutes away from here. Some people are getting a tour of it right now, to show lots of archival footage, like curated themes, like we had an Elvis screening, because we have lots of Elvis footage in the collection. And then we also had a Orioles, archival Orioles baseball screening recently, and we have lots of other ones that are in the works. So that's a unique way, a way for us, and a lot of archives can assist in historic theaters and sites, in exhibits and screenings, to have really unique, one-of-a-kind regional programming. So you can view also all of our unedited, digitized videos for free online at the Internet Archive. And we put one of these blue postcards in all your bags, registration bags, so it has the URL on the back, so please go check it out. We've got tons of stuff on there. And we actually need help from people tagging it and like telling us what we're looking at. So this wonderful type of Maryland media is in large and small organizations throughout the state, and Marmia is here to help with everyone's collections in the region. Marmia has worked with Micah and Hopkins on their collections, but also Bryn Mawr, Gilman, and St. Paul's private schools in Baltimore City, the Baltimore Streetcar Museum, and Cromwell Valley Park as well. And then also with individuals and their home movies. Our state's documented memory is everywhere, even in your organizations and your homes at this very minute. And it's extremely at risk. We only have until about 2028 until catastrophic loss of legacy magnetic video and audio tapes due to this term called degradescence. Which needs to be in like bright neon flashing. And degradescence is a mix of two words. Wish there's a word for that too, but that's not even. It's a mix of degradation and obsolescence. So degradation of the physical tape properties, and then also obsolescence of the equipment and the expertise needed to maintain the equipment and to digitize it. Due to this final countdown, the DC Public Library launched a memory lab in 2016. I was hired a few months ago by DCPL, but don't worry, I still live in Maryland, everyone, to work on the memory lab and the memory lab network. So here's my other hat that I wear. What's a memory lab, you ask? Memory lab is a place, a public-facing digitization lab where anyone with a DC Public Library card can sign up for a 3-hour session, slot of time to use this expensive equipment. It's also an online resource with step-by-step instructions on using the lab, the physical space, as well as additional resources for personal archiving and preservation in general. And because this lab was the first of its kind, we figured why not document everything in the hopes of making it a model for other institutions. So that's also on our online resource. Lastly, a memory lab is a series of programs related to all of these topics together. So classes on preserving your family photographs, preserving your social media accounts, considering your digital afterlife, which does not include making a will, FYI. As well as home movie day screenings and other events that celebrate local communities and their history and their memories. So to create the Memory Lab, the library did not have the resources and could not do it on their own. So they applied to be a National Digital Stewardship Residency Host institution for the project. And here is their resident, Jamie Mears, in her first week on the job in June 2015. And in Jamie's words, I am quoting her here, "I was terrified. I had no experience with AV digitization, and though I did have a formal archiving education, personal archiving is quite a different animal. Some of you may find yourselves in the same boat," Jamie says. "I thought it would be helpful to share how I got from here to there and how you can make it work for you as well." So consider that this terrified person, Jamie, created this amazing resource and lab in 8 months' time. And she created what you see here and documented everything and made everything so transparent, warts and all, so that you wouldn't have to be as terrified as she. You may look at these images now and get a little panicky, but I promise you, if you just spend a solid day and a couple cups of coffee on Jamie's resources that she has up there and just reading her work, these images will make a lot more sense, and particularly the one on your right, which looks really scary, will actually become like this thing of beauty and your best friend. So the resources online include directions for people to follow within the lab, as I mentioned. In the lab tab, it also has resources for physical and digital preservation in the resources tab. And lastly, a source for those individuals or organizations, I'm looking at you all, potentially, that would like to build their own transfer station and build their own memory lab in the Build Your Own Memory Lab tab. So here is the URL. I'm going to pull it up at the end. So we also, because it's not just all about online, right? I mean, sharing new media and stuff, but also the old becomes new again. We made some zines, which are little magazines, so people could have a physical reminder of best practices and something to take home and sort of just put out and look at and cherish. So we put this, our maximum preservation number 2 from DCPL, in your registration packets as well. And this one particularly focuses on digital preservation. So please check that out and also follow along with it and appreciate Jamie's amazing 80s pop reference, song references, pretty great. So there's that one, maximum preservation 2. And then you can go online and see all these as well. So you can also see our maximum preservation 1, which is about just like your physical paper documents. And we're making another one this summer for home movies, so keep an eye out. So saying the lab, the memory lab was popular is a bit of an understatement. We were worried that no one wanted to use it or like understand it, but now we're worried about meeting demand and people want a memory lab at all of our branches. So balancing the business of the lab with ongoing staff trainings and developing documentation and increasing capacity and things like that is getting tough. But you can see here in the first 2 weeks of opening in February 2016, you can see that the memory lab, there were at that time a total of 4 DC Public Library labs, sort of like maker spaces, and the memory lab took up 40% of patron use out of those. So, really quickly, since the memory lab was such a success, we, the DC Public Library, got an IMLS grant to bring it to the rest of the country to create a network of memory labs in public libraries across the U.S. So you can see here the memory labs in process. This is a map that I made that I hang up in my office so I can really think about all the good work we're doing throughout the country. So our first cohort has been picked, and that's them there. So we can't give everyone money to build a memory lab like we did them, but we can and we love to give you support and advice. We'll be creating another website in addition to our LibGuide URL that I mentioned there, but to share what we're learning in bringing the memory lab model to other libraries and their diverse communities. We have the Kurok tribe up in Northern California, so that's a tribal library, and then we have a healthy mix of very large city public libraries, Los Angeles and Houston, and then more more rural out there communities of New Ulm, Pueblo, and Boyle County, and then more like a suburban type with Broward County in Florida. So we've got lots of different types of models, and keep your eyes peeled for that website in the coming months. I'd like to end my piece today with a call to action, Marylanders. Our communities need memory labs, and they need them now. DCPL Memory Lab Network and Marmia are specifically here to help you. The resources are there. Please, 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 please use them and reach out. Also, I mean, as a Marylander, we can't have DC have more things than us, right? So we need to beat them at their own game. So So let's get some mini-labs going, okay? Thank you very much. Next up, and please, I also have more postcards, my cards from both jobs here. Follow us on Twitter, etc. And next up, my colleague Nathan Avant will discuss a case study of how to use the free resources to preserve your media and memory. And don't worry, Nathan works in DC, but also is a Marylander as well.
Siobhan said I'm cool, so.
Yeah, it's official.
So yes, I'm Nathan Avant. I'm going to give you guys a real quick overview of the 1 in 10 People digitization project, which is an ongoing project at the Rainbow History Project, which is a community archive in Washington, D.C. that focuses on promoting, preserving, and collecting Washington, D.C.'s LGBTQ history. It was started in the year 2000 by 5 LGBTQ activists who it was sort of nearing the end of their careers. They were preparing to retire, and they were realizing that if they didn't preserve the story of their work, that nobody was going to. So they initially began a project of collecting oral histories from other activists, people who were around, especially focusing on the 70s and 80s in Washington, D.C. But now, 18 years later, the mission has expanded greatly. We are kind of a real archive now. We collect manuscripts, personal papers. Now we're expanding into audiovisual material. And there are 12 board members. And as you see, our mission is to collect, preserve, and promote an active knowledge of the history, arts, and culture relevant to sexually diverse communities in metropolitan Washington, D.C. So, 1 in 10 People, which is the focus of this particular project, was a public access television show. It was a half-hour, produced monthly. It featured news, interviews, movie reviews, music performances that were relevant to the gay and lesbian community of the greater Washington, D.C. metro area. It was produced at Fairfax Public Access. They made 24 episodes between 1993 and 1995. And it was made by an all-volunteer cast and crew for a budget of about $70 an episode. And a lot of the people that worked on 1 in 10 People went on to have very successful broadcasting careers. So for the couple of years that it was in operation, it was sort of a way for LGBTQ people in Washington, D.C. who have interest in getting into broadcasting to get some real hands-on experience, which they might not have been able to get. So last year, in the fall of 2017, we received a donation of basically all of the analog video that is still existing from the production of 1 in 10 People. So that's 32 pneumatic broadcast tapes. Pneumatic is a large, half-inch thick tape format that was used in broadcast, like professional broadcast settings, until I'd say the late 90s, 1998 or so, it became obsolete. And 11 VHS tapes, which were mostly source material, stuff taped off of television that they wanted to use clips of in the show, things like that. And then 92 high-8 camcorder tapes, which is all the raw footage, interviews, field reports, etc., that they used to make the show. Outside of the studio. When they were in the studio, they would use the studio cameras. And so these two boxes, you can see this is everything. For a large institution, a university, a city library, this wouldn't be, that bad, right? You would get a grant, you would outsource these to be digitized. This would be a very small part of a larger collection. To us, community archive, 12 people, 2 professional archivists, this was an incredibly daunting proposition to digitize this. So the main challenge for us was cost. Outsourcing it would be is the sort of industry standard way to handle things like this is you find a company, say Color Lab in Maryland, to digitize these things for you. Unfortunately, the lowest estimate that we were able to get for digitizing just those 2 boxes of tapes was $11,000, which is a significant portion of our yearly operating budget, not $11,000. Also, we didn't have a digitization program, and the workforce for that digitization program would be 1 person. But still, we asked ourselves, I was asked by my board, actually, can we do this in-house? And I thought to myself, well, if we don't do it in-house, it's not going to get done. So yes, we'll figure it out. This was my strategy, which I'll go through these points, point by point, for getting this done. The first step is planning. And I quickly realized that when you're doing a project like this, even though it seems like you're all alone, you're not. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Lots of other organizations have gone through something very similar. And there, if you look, there are all kinds of really great resources out there that will start to guide you in the direction you need to go. One of those is the DCPL Memory Lab documentation, which I found incredibly useful. You saw a little bit of that in Siobhan's presentation. I'm going to show you this other one here, which is the minimum viable station document, which was started, it's sort of a crowdsourced thing, started by Ashley Brewer at the New York Public Library. And it's just a Google Doc. It's a shared Google Doc that archivists from all over the world just piled their expertise into. It started out as sort of a chaos situation, but now it's like nicely organized. You can see like, okay, what hardware do I think that I might want? Well, you can see these are some suggestions for hardware and, tips about what works and what doesn't work. And, everything in here is not going to be applicable to everybody, but it really gives you a good idea of what you should be aiming for. And a lot of the times, a lot of these documents are set up this way. It'll say like, this is the cheapest way, this is the medium way, and this is if you have a lot of money to throw at this thing. And in almost every occasion, we end up going with the cheapest way. And I'm going to tweet out all of those links on Twitter at the end if anybody wants these links. The second strategy was to spend as little money as possible. This is a picture of my setup. It's in my home. This is the setup that we've used to digitize all of the VHS tapes, and we're working through the high 8 tapes currently. You can see my high 8 playback deck is my old camcorder I got for graduating high school in the year 2000, and it still works. And it plays back these tapes just fine. The VHS player is something that I borrowed, and you can sort of see down under the desk there, hiding, is a stack of more VHS players, because I find that I burn through them pretty quickly. So this, scrounging equipment like this and using what works first and then upgrading from there allows you to spend the money where you actually need to spend the money. And as you can see, the big items here are the capture device, which is the device that you actually plug the analog video cables into that changes them from analog signals into ones and zeros. You can't really skip on that because that's kind of the most important part. A time-based corrector, which is a wonderful little device that stops VHS tapes from jittering, which they really like to do, especially ones that were recorded in like 1992 off somebody's VCR. And I got incredibly lucky. I found a 2014 Mac Mini and a monitor and a keyboard that someone was selling. Their graphic design firm was upgrading their computer, so they were selling it on Craigslist. I got the set for $300, which was kind of awesome. And so the total cost of this setup, which has been very successful to us, is less than $1,000. And then the other half of that, once you get the hardware, is the software. I have not paid a single dollar for any software that I've used to do this project. But the cost that I have paid is in fiddliness and in late nights Googling, troubleshooting problems. Because one of the disadvantages of using free software is that it's often designed to only run on the command line. A lot of the software we record, rsync, FFmpeg, crucial pieces of software for this work are command line only. Does everybody know what I mean when I say command line? Yeah. Which is incredibly daunting for me. I have a little bit of command line experience, but when I first started looking for software, if I saw something that was command line only, I said, well, okay, can't do that one. I'll have to look for something with a graphical interface. And then when you start doing that, the money just starts adding up, and eventually I said, okay, I'm just going to have to start doing some tutorials and figure it out. And so you do. You figure it out. One of the benefits of using this free software, other than the cost, is that they're usually very lightweight. And so, on this 2014 Mac Mini, I could never run, say, Adobe Premiere to capture video. But because vRecord runs on a command line, it takes up very few resources. I can capture beautiful high-res up to 4K video on this ancient computer. There's trade-offs to using free software. I don't think it's a silver bullet, but it really helps. So here are some of the resources that I found very helpful in getting my head around using some of the more complicated pieces of software that we have. I'm going to show you one that I think is just really incredibly cool. It's called FF Improviser. This is another crowdsourced project by AMIA, which is the Association of Moving Image Archivists. It is designed to make using FFmpeg, which is a command line tool that it's just incredibly powerful you can change any type of video into any other type of video. You can package you can change the .mov to the .mkv. You can change the packaging format very easily. You can make GIFs, you can trim, you can add graphics. You can do all kinds of things, but it's very daunting to figure out how to actually do that. But with FF Improviser, you just say, okay, what is it that I want to do? I would like to convert a wave to an MP3 file. You click here, and it'll tell you cut and paste this text in. You change the things that are italic, input file, output file, and you hit enter, and it does the thing that you need to do. You don't have to figure out all of these complicated commands. You just have to figure out what it is that you want to do, and then they'll tell you how to do it. It's really amazing, and it makes you feel like a genius, even though all you've done is cut and paste some text. And then another thing that's been really helpful for me is the website Code Academy, which isn't a free site, but has some free tutorials for various things, and their command line tutorial is pretty well run. And then the last point of our strategy is to ask for help when we need it. One of the places that came through is Brother Help Thyself, which is a charitable organization. They make grants to support the LGBT community in the Mid-Atlantic region. They last year they gave out $100,000 in small grants, most grants less than $1,000, but those $1,000 grants can really make a difference. And for us, we got a $790 grant from Brother Help Thyself, which almost completely paid for our digitization station. And then you'll notice in my setup earlier, I did not have a U-matic deck, which is the giant broadcast format. So I actually partnered with Siobhan at Marmia to borrow her U-matic deck in order to digitize in one weekend all 26 U-matic tapes that I had for 1 in 10 people, which I was able to accomplish, and she was very kind, and I killed her deck. It died on the last tape. Like smoke and everything. It was real bad, but she was kind enough to still want to associate with me. And so this is another workflow chart, just like what she said, but I wanted to show this because this is kind of what we settled on at Rainbow History Project for. This is going to be our digitization path, not just for 1 in 10 people, but we're still getting AV material in. And now that we have built the capacity from this one project, we can start dealing with it. And there are 2 things that I wanted to show this chart for. One is you can see that there is a 2009 MacBook Pro in the middle of this workflow, which is where all of the actual processing happens. As far as trimming and creating access files and uploading to Internet Archive and all that. The reason I have that in there is because the 2014 Mac Mini, while it's great for capturing, and it's really wonderful for capturing actually, it's not really able to handle pretty much anything else. So I had to stick in my personal MacBook laptop into the workflow. And so that's one of the things that we're looking to change, is to actually upgrade that computer in the very near future. The other thing I wanted to show you here is that digital preservation down here in the bottom is a big part of the workflow. It's one thing to digitize, it's one thing to upload things to Internet Archive, but if you have to always think about how you're going to keep your files and how you're going to make sure that you don't lose them. And digital preservation is a whole giant topic for another day, but I think you could open up that zine that's in your bag and come out with that very much. So, as a result, oh, that just says link, that's great. As a result, all 25 episodes of 1 in 10 People have now been digitized. We're working with all the VHS has been digitized. We're working our way through the high 8, kind of slowly, but we're getting there. And the full episodes are all available on the Internet Archive app, and you can search for them, and you can watch them, and you can enjoy the haircuts, and I'll just real quick. Here we are. They're all here. They're all great. So that is our project so far, and we're going to keep working on it. Thank you.
Well, as Megan mentioned, I'm the University Archivist Emerita, but I actually went back to work last Wednesday. So retirement lasted less than a year. Very pleased to be here to talk with you all this morning about some of the outreach efforts that we do in the University of Maryland Archives. In particular, we're going to focus on our blog at the end of the presentation. And Jason?
So we're very pleased to be with you today. Meg Baxter, she said she's a big fan of Technical Tales, and we hope those of you who may be affiliated with the University of Maryland or with the state of Maryland will become big fans of it as well. A little bit about the University Archives before we get started. We serve as the collective memory of the University of Maryland. From the granting of the charter for the Maryland Agricultural College on March 6th of 1856 to today. Established by the libraries in 1972, the Archives is the official repository for all of the university's permanent records, no matter what form those may take. We actively gather things like administrative files, university publications, photographs, audiovisual materials, faculty papers, student group records, master's theses and doctoral dissertations, and because the university has no museum, memorabilia and ephemera that document aspects of campus life. The blog is one tool that we use in a wide array of outreach that we conduct to try to drive people to the archives, hopefully in person, but through the website, at least initially. We have a revolving exhibit that we run in the Kelvin Library, where we put 2 exhibits in per year. And we have, on occasion, also used the main exhibit space in Hornbeak Library, which is where we're located. We obviously have flyers and brochures that we've produced, or are part of including the special collections flyer and the University Archives flyer that should be in your tote bag. We're involved in press releases, publications, both on campus and off campus, public events. We do a lot of attending public events on campus. We're involved in television and radio spots and print media. Oftentimes, just as an example, we might get asked by intercollegiate athletics to provide them some materials for something that they need for a broadcast of the game or some news piece that's going to be showing up. And it's generally they need it right now because it's going to be tonight. we do an awful lot of, as I expect all you do as well, fundraising and donor stewardship. We try for grants as often as we can. We work with docents and volunteers. Anybody who wants to come and put in some time, we're happy to have them. We can never have enough people. We could work at everything we say for 10,000 years and not have enough time to do everything that's there. We produce physical products like note cards or calendars. A few years ago, we were involved in this really great project where a company would use the football game day program covers, which were all, this is pre-photographs, so they were all these really wonderful illustrations, and they produced these calendars of all these historic game day covers, which was a really neat thing to be part of. And lastly, of course, cultivating relationships with our major users of our collections. And that can be, obviously some of that is partnered, but then there's times like this when we're just out and about and we're ready at all times to give you the 30-second spiel on who we are and what we do and why it matters. Very, very important. Increasingly, our outreach has moved beyond these types of traditional approaches and taken on a decidedly digital component, which is what we're going to talk about here. We obviously maintain a website. One of the goals of our social media programming is to bring folks to that website. Our website obviously does the things everybody else does as well, with hours and contact information, collection descriptions, finding aids, access policies, and things like that. Surely some of you all are creating your own digital content. For example, we have the UMB Archives Online Encyclopedia of University of Maryland History, something we call MAC to Millennium, going back to Maryland Agricultural College. We have an image repository as well called University Album, which has several thousand images on it of our well over 1 million photographs that we have in the collection. We digitize some of our collections as well and provide links to that content via our website, and we have a digitized materials page that you can look at as well to see some of that. Our social media platforms consist of Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, YouTube, and of course, the blog. And today we're going to specifically talk about the blogging, what kind of work we do, what kinds of things we promote, and how that helps us reach the user community that we hope to reach.
Yeah, we'd be happy to show you our website too. If we have a moment to at the end. We began our Terrapin Tales blog in 2012 on a platform called WordPress, which you all may be familiar with. We had a blog on some in-house software that the libraries maintained, but it really wasn't giving us the flexibility and the visibility that we felt that we wanted, so we decided we would go ahead and move to WordPress. Of course, a blog allows you to provide longer, more in-depth coverage of a particular topic, but you can also use your other social media outlets to push visitors to your blog. So, for instance, when we do post on Terrapin Tales, we go back and we post on our Facebook page and say, today is a new blog, post a new blog post. Or we put something up on our Twitter feed to point people to the blog. And that's really an example of sort of building on your outreach. If you do an exhibit, you create a press release, you do a public event, you might do a publication about that. All of that can be promoted on your social media and promoted through the blog. If you go on radio and television, you can promote that. So, trying to build on outreach instances as you go along from one particular event is a very useful strategy. So if you do indeed decide to take the plunge and start a blog, what kind of factors do you need to take into consideration? First of all, of course, is choosing the platform that you want to use. We do use WordPress since it's free. Free is good and relatively easy to use. You have to think about your target audience, so who do you want to focus on and appeal to? What do you want to cover in your posts? So do you have an upcoming event at your institution? Is there an important anniversary that relates to your site or your collections? Do you have a new acquisition, or have you received a major financial gift? Have you gotten a grant? Are there unique, significant items in your collections or new projects or staff that you want to publicize? We try and make our blogs posts both educational and entertaining. We want to keep people engaged in the topic as well as conveying important information to them. You have to decide too how frequently you want to post. I confess that we've fallen down a little bit from this in the last year or so, but it's best to set a regular schedule and stick to it so that your writers for the blog and your followers get into a certain rhythm. And you want to choose a routine that's not going to produce an excessive burden on your content creators. And also you want your followers to know when to check back on a regular basis. Oftentimes, with any new task, the question is who's going to do all this work? You need both writers and editors, as well as someone who's going to monitor the comments that you might receive on your blog. That could be one person, that could be a team of people, but you really have to think about who's going to take on this extra responsibility. In addition, who's providing the content? Are the curators going to do the writing and, feed the content? And how is that all going to work? How much research are some of these pieces going to take? Is this something that you can dash off the top of your head? Or is it going to take some time to do some research and some digging to create the content that you want to provide? More than likely, it's going to be a combination of both types of scenarios. When you're ready to start posting, we have a few tips for you. Always use an image, at least one image in your post. Images, of course, attract attention and enhance your words. Using a variety of formats of posts. It could be a very traditional paragraph style. Some of our most successful posts have been in the form of lists. Everybody likes, like a top 10 list, top 10 most popular this and that. We did a great one that got a lot of attention called 20 Maryland Students That You Wish Had Been Your Roommate. So we went back and picked a number of famous alumni and did a short blurb about each one. So, would you have wanted Gary Williams, who was our basketball coach for many years, would be your roommate? Jim Henson, some of our famous alumni. We did a post on hidden places at UMD, also little known facts about student publications. And so those were extremely popular in terms of viewership. If your blog platform allows you to choose categories and tags, you will want to use terms that can be reused as hashtags on Twitter and Facebook. It can facilitate quick searching on the web and when you're looking for past posts on a particular topic. It's also a good idea to think about creating a series of posts or what you would call a campaign that can be tied together to encourage readers to check back frequently at a designated time. We used standard language in each of those posts to alert readers about future installments. So we're going to check back at this time next week for the next installment of X. A couple examples of that would be a series of posts that we did a couple of years ago close to Halloween on ghosts at the university. We do have a global ghost tour, so we took each of those sites from the ghost tour and did a longer length post on the blog. That was extremely popular. Students said it's awesome that we have ghosts on campus. We also did a series of 26 posts called University of Maryland A to Z, where we took every letter of the alphabet and focused on a particular topic or site on campus that related to that letter. You want to tie into local, state, national, international events and anniversaries. There's a fun site called nationaldaycalendar.com, which tells you what special days are being celebrated each day. So is it National Chocolate Ice Cream Day? Is it National Best Friend Day? So there might be ways that you can link into something more using via that resource. There are also a lot of analytics on a lot of these platforms. On WordPress, Jason has pulled up our analytics page. There's a lot of information here that we can glean about our audience, what topics are particularly popular, what tools people use to access your site, and the terms that they use to search. It's also a good idea to try and work ahead as much as possible. You can begin to draft a post and continue to polish it before scheduling it for publication. WordPress, for example, allows you to schedule posts many months in advance, so that's a very valuable tool. So that's a general oversight.
Yep, and we're almost out of time.
All right.
We're running into lunch, so we can open it up to questions.
One thing before we open it
Please.
up, one thing I would like to point out is if you look at the views, this is for 2017, I believe. We get between 7,000 to 10,000 views of our homepage based on the blog. So it's driving a lot of people to our website like we wanted it to. The last couple of years, it's been about a third of all of the unique page views that have happened have been for our homepage. So we're able to actually show to ourselves and to our resource allocators that it is doing what we intended to, as well as a lot of fun. So
You all post great photographs. I've used the accredited.
That's really what a lot of people really react to, are the images. We've noticed that too on our other social media platforms as well. Yeah.
I have two questions, real fast. What was the website for the day of the year?
nationaldaycalendar.com.
Okay,
And you can also subscribe to like a daily feed, so they'll send you an email and say today is blah, 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 blah. But you can look ahead on the calendar to see what's coming up as well.
okay. And then my other question was, you were saying that you use your social media to promote. So you all have your own archive of social media, or is this like an overall university social media that's feeding people to you, or both?
We do have our own archive social media. We had to kind of fight hard to make that happen. We have social media for special collections at the university libraries as a whole. And there is, of course, University of Maryland social media. There's some social media for athletics, each college and school, each department. I mean, it's a wildness of social media on our campus. But we really felt like we had a particular clientele that we could justify appealing to. So we have fought hard to keep our social media independent. And I think that's really worked well.
Yes. Actually, for all of you, I had the same question, and anyone can answer. When you're putting up content, how do you deal with what might be personal property or copyrighted property and balancing that with public access on the web?
So for Rainbow History Project, the way that we handle that is that when we, like the tape donation that we received, when we received that donation, we made sure that the copyright is transferred to us. And so like part of the donation process is you sign what's called a deed of gift, and part of that deed of gift form is transferring to us the rights to display on the internet or in person or to use it in whatever we want. And that's negotiable, and sometimes people that are donating don't want to give us like free range for that stuff, but most of the time
Yeah. And I'd say Marvia has the WJZ, they basically signed us over the rights for that content. So what we do, and we use the Internet Archive as well, for all of our copies, preservation copies and everything. So we let people download it. We tell them we use a Creative Commons license and say for non-commercial purposes, you can download it. Only the WJZ created stuff because that's all that we have the rights to. But I still put up, like there is this one video called Trump's Manipulation of Media. Interesting. And so I was like, but it was created by a sister station, so we don't have the rights to it, but I put it up there and just made it so people can't download it, they can just stream it.
Okay.
So I really want to empower everyone to be more risk. Like, I feel like everyone is just very, most organizations, especially bigger ones, with fancy lawyers that tell them to do things, are very risk averse. And so they shut things down, and preservation is being held back because of copyright and other like third-party rights kind of issues too, such as privacy and things like that. But Marvin doesn't have anything to lose, so that's like where we want to sort of push the envelope there and ignore our pro bono lawyer. So with a certain level of like, you know, looking to fair use, looking to Section 108 of copyright law, looking to what people have actually litigated, and if someone says, hey, you're violating my copyright or my, you know, privacy or whatever, just be like, how can we work with you to make this right? Should you take it down? Should, you know, and then, okay, that's one video out of, you know, 25,000 that we don't, you know, get provide access to, so we'll work on what we can.
And I wanted to show, this comes up at the beginning of all of the videos that we uploaded in our archive. We have a lawyer on our board, luckily, we just got lucky, who helped us craft this language, and like we think this basically covers everything. So the main point is, if you have a problem with this being on the internet, just get in touch with us and we can work it out. We're not trying to steal anything. Yeah. It just sort of communicates that we have good intentions. I think that helps.
Yeah, and we don't have it in front of the video, which is great, but we have a little blurb in like one of the fields, like copyrighted in configuring the archive.
Yeah, I think the same is true for us. When we're putting up things, we're generally not putting up anything we're not sure we have big copyrights for. In our image repository, for instance, University of Iowa, there is a copyright statement that appears as a standard part of the metadata. So people are being notified if they read the metadata. The same thing is true with our student newspaper database, which is relatively recent development for us. We've been very sensitive to the copyright that's owned by an independent corporation that publishes the paper now. So there was a lot of negotiation back and forth with them about how we were going to handle requests for reprint, for instance. So a lot of times it's just talking to people, making sure that they're comfortable with what you're doing, that you're following the copyright laws.
I would like to say thank you to our speakers. If anybody has extra questions, they can definitely stick around and find your favorite speaker at lunch. Everybody else is hungry like that, and we'll just hold about